God Valley, ladies and gentlemen. The most decisive battle in the history of One Piece, where the most titanic fighters from all over the world gathered together at one singularity that was so intense, the island itself was ripped asunder and thrown into the multiverse. So why was everybody there? Why did everybody go to God Valley? What was going on there? Okay, well, let's look at this. All right, so Rox was there because Shakky was there. Yeah. Roger was also there because Shakky was there. Whitebeard was there too, mostly because Shakky was there. Was there anybody on God Valley? Let's just cut to the chase. Was there anybody on the island that wasn't there because of Shakky? Well, there were a lot of people that were enslaved that were brought there, like Kuma. I don't think he really had a choice in the matter. But aside from Kuma and Ivankov and anybody, was there anybody there willingly that wasn't there because of Shakky? Garp, I don't think Garp was there because of Shakky. I think Garp was there mainly because of Roger. He just really, really wanted to punch Roger in the face, you know? He's just like, man, that big lug, I just can't wait just to punch him in the jaw. His perfect jawline. Big Mom, also, I don't think was there because of Shakky. I think she was there more for the devil fruits that were also stolen from Hachinosu. And Kaido, remember, Kaido was talking about Roger as well. He's like, hey, I think Roger's gonna be there. I want to fight him. So I don't think they were there because of Shakky. But, yeah, a lot of the heavy hitters were there because of that. So, the way that this goes down, and we don't know 100% yet, you know, we're on a break at the moment. When Oda comes back, he'll probably reveal it, but it's very, very strongly implied at the end of the last chapter that Shakky was the great treasure of Hachinosu when she left the Kuja pirates and Amazon Lily, and she moved to Hachinosu to open up her bar, the Shakky's ripoff bar, right? And it was insanely popular, and all the pirates on the island, like, looked up and respected, and also just were dazzled by the, you know, blinding beauty that was Shakky. And Rox and his crew were no exceptions to that. And the narrator comes on, and probably Oda himself, or maybe Panda Man. Maybe the two are one and the same. I'm not sure. And they say that, like, and now, of course, any great treasure is also the target for theft. So that's it. Now, we do not see Shakky in the flashback with, like, Kuma at God Valley and everything, right? We see a little bit of God Valley there and the human hunting contest that the Celestial Dragons did, and, you know, see Garling there and the Gods Knights and everything like that. But in that flashback, we only see the 6 treasure chests, and one of them has the Pawpaw fruit, which, of course, Kuma eats, and another one is the Azure Dragon fruit, which Big Mom gets her hands on and ultimately Kaido eats, and then he becomes a dragon, and we all know Kaido is a dragon, all right? We had a whole, like, 150 chapter arc about Kaido being a dragon, okay? So, yeah, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't have been another prize, a prize, you know, air quotes, that was, like, for the grand champion of the battle, right? Which was announced to be Garling, but I'm assuming everything that happened with Garp and Rox and Roger and everybody showing up and the island kind of being obliterated off the map, it's sort of like the contest probably didn't end the way that they intended, right? Okay. So it is most likely Shakky. Now, this also ties in to something that Shakky said in chapter 1156, when we get to see the idols that are the Kuja pirates. We see Gloriosa in her younger years and Shakuyaku, and then Garp shows up, and well, Roger shows up, and then Garp shows up and everything. Shakuyaku specifically mentions when Roger pulls up and is just like, we're here to take Shakky! And then Shakky bursts out of her room, and she's like, oh, you're here to do what? Excuse me? You're here to do what now? You know, and she specifically mentions, I'm never going to be somebody's servant or slave. I'm never going to be taken away. You know, I am my own person, right? So the idea that that ultimately did happen to her is something that really kind of shows that, like, okay, that, like, the pieces are lining up now, right? Like, there's this big epic battle that was all fought to bring her back, okay? Now, there's a lot of ways to look at this, and one way of looking at it is a lot of people are disappointed in the direction that Oda went because, like, oh, okay, so all of God Valley was just because Roger and Rox and everybody, you know, were attracted to Shakky. Like, that, there was pretty girl, let's go bring her back. Like, that was the whole point of this, right? Okay, so a couple of things about that. First of all, I want to say, and many people have brought this up, is that Oda mentions and references lots of tropes and, mythology and various things in One Piece. One Piece is a beautiful story to me because it is just a hodgepodge, a collection of like every trope that ever existed. You want time travel in One Piece, it's there. You want dragons in One Piece, they're there. Like everything, right? Everything is there. So Helen of Troy is a great example of this in the Trojan War, an entire war fought over a woman, right? And there's other examples of this in real history and also throughout like mythology. And we all know Greek mythology is pretty weird, right? There's a story in Greek mythology about a dude that lives on an island that has no life on it. Well, the reason it doesn't have any life on it was because Hera got pissed off, but like that's another story. But there's this dude that's living on this island and he's like the king, and he's like, man, there's nobody on this island except a bunch of like ants, crawling around on the trees and stuff. So he prays to Zeus. I know this is going to end well. He prays to Zeus. He's like, Zeus, could you repopulate the land? Okay, that makes probably more sense why he would pray to Zeus. Zeus is good at repopulating places. But anyway, just like, hey, yeah, can you like repopulate this land with as many people as there are ants on this tree? And I think Zeus just wanted to fuck with the guy, so he was just like, oh, okay. And so he just uses his godly Zeus powers and just turns all of the ants into people. So yeah, Greek mythology is filled with a bunch of weird stuff, so this is hardly the weirdest one, right? So it's like, in terms of like a storytelling device, it's like, yeah, no, this works. Also, I may remind you that the Straw Hats all risked their lives to go and bring back Robin at Enies Lobby. Everything was okay with that, right? No, okay, so there is a difference there, right? And I think that's what people are kind of annoyed by, right? The Straw Hats all went to go save Robin at Enies Lobby because she was their nakama, she was their family, and she got taken away because, and she willingly went with them because she didn't want the Straw Hats to get, all involved with this and get killed, so she decided to go on her own volition. But then, on that moment, when Luffy and everybody were standing on, like, the courthouse roof, and they were staring across the bridge and everything, and they were looking up at the Tower of Law, and they were like, Robin, just tell us, do you want to live? And then we're going to come save you. That's what we do. We're family, right? And then Robin, of course, has probably the single most iconic scene with her entire character is the I want to live scene, where she begins to cry and weep and scream, I want to live. And at that point, it doesn't matter what was going to happen. The Straw Hats were going to save Robin, or they were all going to die trying. And that was the way it was, okay? So the difference here is that, okay, well, they try to save Robin because that's their friend and her family member and everything like that. Meanwhile, you have Roger and Whitebeard and Rox and everybody that's just like, is like, man, Shakky's purty. We're going to go bring her back. That was the whole purpose. So, I don't know about Roger exactly, but when it comes to Rox and the Rox crew and Hachinosu, and why all the pirates mobilized out of Hachinosu to go to God Valley, I want to bring up a couple of things. So Shakky moved to Hachinosu 42 years ago, all right? And the narrator goes through this whole thing. When she arrived, it brought a level of, like, peace and serenity to the island. All right, like, keep in mind, this is a rough and tumble kind of place. Hachinosu is the place, like, the salty spittoon is at, right? Like, a bunch of pirates that are all dudes and are, like, rude and crude and just like, you talking about me behind my back? Psh, no, I'm not. You talking about me? No, I wasn't. Bam! And, like, that's like a standard Tuesday night, just people beating the shit out of each other and getting drunk, and it's just, trash everywhere, bunch of pirates doing piratey things, right? And Rox was at kind of the head of all that, right? And they go through this whole thing that when Shakky showed up and opened her bar, there was a level of beauty now. Like the flower has bloomed in the blasted, desolate wasteland, as it were, okay? So yes, pretty much everybody on the island was absolutely stricken by her beauty, but it was kind of that effect that sort of brought everybody kind of together in a weird way. 42 years ago, she moves there. God Valley happens 38 years ago. There's a whole 4 years there where Shakky lived on Hachinosu with this bar that was insanely successful, and the wait period for this was like over a month to get in, right? And we don't know much because we're not at God Valley yet in the flashback. at this point, I might as well just say Oda, go ahead and do God Valley, right? Like, I know there's other stuff going on in the present story at Elbaf, and there's stuff with Loki and Hyrudin, and we still have to learn about Harald. Like, this was the whole point of this was Loki telling the story of how Harald was executed, but whatever. If we're so close to God Valley, just do it, right? Like, we're here, just go ahead and just show the whole damn battle, right? Okay, we've already set up that Shakky was the treasure that was taken, so might as well go ahead with it, right? Okay, so yes, it's one way you could look at it, like, oh, they were just dazzled by her beauty, and that was the only reason, and that's why they wanted to bring her back. Another way of looking at this is that after 4 years of living on this island, it sort of changed Hachinosu. And Hachinosu became, like, not a nice place to live, because it's still Pirate Island, but, like, it was more pleasant because Shakky was there, right? And maybe her presence sort of brought like a balance to everything, right? You could see it going one of two ways, honestly. You could see it like everybody's trying to court Shakky, everybody's trying to go and get into her bar and like, you know, have a meal cooked by her and everything like that and pay outrageous prices. Man, Shakky she was a smart businesswoman, if nothing else. You know, the whole plan and strategy actually worked out rather well, I'm sure. I'm sure she made bank on that place. But anyway, it could have been a thing where they all just started warring over each other. Like, it's like, I have a reservation for Shakky's ripoff bar tonight. Really? Well, I'm gonna beat the crap out of you for it. Like, maybe it was something like that, but then Shakky walked out and just be like, hey, they're non-transferable. And be like, oh, okay then, Miss Shakky, I guess we gotta work together now, and I'll wait my turn. He's like, that's good, that's nice, thank you. I'll see you soon. I was like, okay. You know, like, I don't know, it'd be a weird kind of dynamic. Clearly, a war did not break out on Hachinosu, because if that's what would happen, I don't think there would have been an island anymore, right? So clearly, if it didn't go that direction, it had to go the other direction, which the pirates on Hachinosu, specifically the Rocks pirates, started to view Shakky as their family, as their nakama, as somebody that they would protect at all costs, all right? And there's a couple of theories we could go into there, like pretty soon Rocks is going to be a daddy. 42 years ago, Shakky moves there. Blackbeard is born 40 years ago. Not to say that Shakky is 100% Blackbeard's mom, but I'm just saying Rocks is going to be a dad in about 2 years, and that's when Shakuyaku was living on the island, and maybe something happened there. If not, somebody else was living on the island, might have been Blackbeard's mom, you know, or maybe Blackbeard doesn't have a mom. Maybe Rocks just, gave birth via, like, was it symbiosis or osmosis or something? Just split off, you know, another clone of himself or something, and then that's how Blackbeard came to be. I don't know how this is going to work, right? But anyway, yeah, after 4 years living on that island and changing it for, like, the better, it would make sense that when she was, you know, taken away, I would assume it would have had to have been, like, Garling himself or some of the strongest God's Knights went to Hachinosu and took her back to God Valley, right? And you know, enslaved her to be used as a prize in this messed up tournament the Celestial Dragons were doing, right? Because, like, the normal Marines wouldn't be able to do that. Cypherpole, I mean, maybe Cypherpole Zero would have been able to do that, but, like, really, with how many heavy hitters, with all of the things that have been established on how many strong characters were at Hachinosu at this point, you got to bring out the God's Knights. And also, because this is in Elbaf, we're already, this is the arc where we're learning about the power of the God's Knights and how strong, like, the higher echelons of the world government are. We learned about the Gorosei in the last arc, and now we're learning about the God's Knights and Emu themselves. So it would make sense they sent the God's Knights to go and capture Shakky and bring her back to, I keep saying bring her to God Valley, right? So I'm okay with that, like that as the premise, you know. Now, as for Roger showing up, Roger really was just smitten with Shakky probably, but also he brings up, he's like, I've been waiting a year for this when arriving at God Valley for the battle. So maybe something went down a year ago when he found Lodestar, when he reached the end of the Grand Line, at least the end of the log pose route. You know, there was something, I mean, yeah, he learned about the road poneglyphs and something, but the way he was talking about it, maybe he was, maybe he had an encounter with the world government and the nobles at Lodestar or at some other point a year ago, and then when he was going to God Valley to get Shakky, that was when it was like, oh, okay, time for a rematch sort of thing. I don't know. Rayleigh was also there, which I'm going to throw out there that this was the moment, like, they were kind of flirty with each other, at least Shakky, like a little bit flirty with Rayleigh before, but I'm going to say this was the moment where they like teamed up for the first time. I like to see a moment, not where like Rayleigh like saves Shakky as like the damsel in distress, because she's a major badass, but like a scene where like Shakky's all tied up or something, and then Rayleigh frees her, sure, and then like back to back they fight off like a legion of fucking pirates together, and that's like after that was said and done, and after they got away. Maybe they don't like go together because like Roger still has like a journey left. You know, this is 38 years ago at God Valley. There's still like another 12 years until he meets Odin, and then another like 13 years until the One Piece, and another 14 years until he gets executed, right? So there's still a whole journey here, but that could have been the moment where like Rayleigh and Shakky team up and start beating the crap out of a bunch of God's Knights, and then after that, Shakky kind of looks at him and just kind of winks again, or maybe she kisses him, maybe whatever, and then at that point Rayleigh's like, oh, okay, whatever, and then it, you know, sets up for later when, you know, Rayleigh is done with the Roger Pirates. When they retire, he goes off with Shakky, and they go to Sabaody Archipelago, which, by the way, the bar on Hachinosu is like the same architecture and design as the bar on Sabaody, so I'm assuming it's the same building that was moved, except there's a large orb on the top of it, which many people have said, what if that's the egg that was on the Oro Jackson the whole time? It's like, no, I don't think that was probably the egg. It's probably just like a modification or like a living space. Also, like, Sabaody Archipelago is all about bubbles and everything, so maybe that's Rayleigh's like workshop, because he is a ship coder, you know what I mean? So maybe something like that. But yeah, I'm thinking it's the same building. Maybe it was moved by a giant. Maybe they moved it themselves, but they took it from Hachinosu and moved it somewhere else because Shakky couldn't stay there anymore, right? Because of what happened the first time. And so she had to kind of go into hiding in Grove 13 of the Sabaody Archipelago, right? But what do you think about God Valley in terms of, like, are we going to get that scene in the flashback? I think at this point we're so close to it, and so much buildup has occurred. Like, just go for it, right? Like, just go for the battle. Maybe, I mean, I guess you don't have to show every single solitary detail. You could show some of it like you did with Kuma's backstory, because we did get some God Valley in Kuma's backstory. Show a little bit more of it here, like the vast majority of it. And if there's anything else you want to include that wasn't included, you can later on. But honestly, I think all the major players are part of this now, right? Like, we now know their motivations for being there, and a lot of things that, like, characters said, like when Whitebeard arrived on the island and he was kind of back-talking rocks. There was the scene where Stussy, who was like clinging to Whitebeard at the time, was like, oh, Newgate, not you too. So maybe she was referring to like Whitebeard also being smitten with Shakky and wanting to bring Shakky back, and that's the reason they all mobilized and all that stuff. Not just the Rocks pirates, but all the pirates on Hachinosu that weren't, you know, even part of their crew also went. So there was a crazy amount of pirates that were there, but all Garp wanted was Roger. He just wanted a piece of Roger. I wonder what the Yonko, you know, were back then. I mean, I don't even know if the Yonko was a term back then. So they're not like an organization. It's not like you have to apply to be a part of the Yonko. I guess it really just comes down to who are like the strongest pirates in the New World during this time period. And at God Valley, you know, at that point, Roger had already reached Lodestar and everything like that. So I think it's pretty fair to say that Roger would have been a Yonko at this point. Rocks would have been another one. There might have not have been four also. There might have been like, yeah, Rocks and Roger are really strong pirates in their own right, but there's nobody else that really reaches that level, like holds a candle to them. Like, yeah, other people on Rox's crew, but like they're not maybe at their apex of power yet in terms of like influence in the world. Like Big Mom had, you know, some of her kids at this point, and she had an information network, but it was like Totland wasn't around yet, and it certainly wasn't the size that it was, you know, in the present story, right, with all the islands and everything. So she wouldn't have been a Yonko. Kaido at God Valley was only like 21 years old, and he doesn't even have a devil fruit yet. He gets his devil fruit at God Valley, and he's still going to be captured by the government and thrown in Punk Hazard a few times, mainly just to get some food, but, you know, he is not a Yonko yet. Whitebeard, I mean, we know that he has the Gura Gura no Mi, right? We know he had that, so maybe it was the Gura Gura no Mi that, like, wiped off God Valley, because the implication was, the way Sengoku talked about it, God Valley was, you know, removed from the map. Now, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean like an Ohara situation where Ohara, as in the physical island, is still there? it was Buster called into oblivion, but we see Vegapunk and Dragon and the Giants going there 6 months after the disaster, but it was scrubbed from all the cartography books and the map books and everything in the world, okay? So is God Valley, the physical island, still there, just in ruined, or maybe it got turned into Thriller Bark or something, or maybe not the whole island, but maybe a portion of it got turned into Thriller Bark. I don't know. Thriller Bark did come from the west, and one of the most notable islands in the west, aside from O'Hara, is also God Valley. What is with the West Blue and getting islands scrubbed from existence there? I don't know. The West Blue must annoy the world government for some reason. But anyway, yeah. It could be still there, or it could be gone. It could have been destroyed and sunk beneath the waves with all those crazy people that were fighting there. I mean, just with Whitebeard's ability alone, he probably could have done that, but also just Roger and Rox clashing, the Conqueror's hockey singularity that would occur there might actually, create a black hole, which would, suck the island into or something, with how much raw, manly hockey, burst out there, right? So I'm not really sure. Rox purportedly dies. Sengoku says that, Rox he met his end. He met the end of his life at that place. So he's probably still not around, at least in his current form, the way we're seeing him in the flashback. If you want to throw out the theory, the multiple souls theory of Blackbeard having, Rox's heart or Rox's soul, you could go with that. But in terms of the way he is in the flashback, he's not in that form anymore, right? He has lost his physical body, if that means anything, right? But yeah, I mean, we at least know that Shakuyaku, to kind of bring it around here at the end, we know Shakuyaku, we don't know for certain if she was taken, but if she was taken, she was eventually saved and eventually ends up with a happy ending living with Rayleigh. So everything worked out for her, but I can't help but wonder now, considering the way that we have the setup with Shakuyaku and how absolutely stunning and beautiful she was, a bunch of pirates all mobilizing at one location because there was a woman that was taken and brought there. I wonder if this is going to happen with Robin. Because Robin, also stunningly beautiful, but also is the key to deciphering most of the secrets of the One Piece world. She can read poneglyphs. Not very many people can do that, all right? Actually, because Sukiyaki's alive, he can read poneglyphs now too, but not everybody knows that he's alive. Also, I don't think it would be okay, well, we couldn't get Nico Robin. Let's go grab this old guy from Wano. He's no. So what if, and it's been brought up before, I mean, Robin has been taken by the government before, and the Straw Hats had to save her at Enies Lobby, but it's also been kind of brought up before that, at Zou, when we learned about the road poneglyphs, I think it was either Ino Arashi or Nekomamushi were hey, now that this information is out there and, there's, really strong pirates in Yonko that have these road poneglyphs, they're going to be coming after you, Robin. And Robin sort of chuckles, and she smiles, and she's well, I know I have a really strong crew and family that'll come and save me, so I'll be protected. I'll be okay. Thank you for worrying about me, but I'll be fine, right? And Robin is strong too, but she was speaking of how confident she was and how much she trusted her friends. And Luffy and Usopp and Chopper were all aw, gee shucks, Robin, aw, yeah, we'll make sure everything's okay with you. What if it gets down to the final climax of this story, the One Piece arc, the Laugh Tale arc, and Robin does get taken by Emu or somebody, and then it's a mirror of God Valley where everybody's hey, Robin is at this location. If you want to save her, you have to come here and fight against just an onslaught of God's Knights and Gorosei and Emu and all the Marines and all sorts of shit. And it becomes a mirror of God Valley. And the Straw Hats go to save her. And then, all these other pirates are mobilizing as well. Dofi breaks out of Impel Down. Big Mom's crew. Cyborg Big Mom comes out. Cyborg Kaido emerges from the lava. Whatever, right? And then they all go and fight, and that's the final war. That's the final battle. I don't know. What do you think? Not sure, but let me know down below on how you feel about that. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Techie 101 signing out. Later, all.